Hello guys, I'm going to be making another Aurelian Sol video today. In this episode I'll be covering runes and itemization, so just the overall build for the champion. My opinion on this differs greatly from the vast majority of Aurelian Sol players, but I want to show you why I build what I do and explain how it works. So, the primary difference that I have is that I build a mythic that very few other Aurelian Sol players opt for, and that's Luden's Tempest. So why do I build Luden's Tempest? Well, Aurelian Sol doesn't gain too much of his damage from his AP ratios. He has very high base damage, and he's the only champ in the game with infinitely scaling base damage, as far as I'm aware. The damage of his Q, the base damage, scales with his Stardust stacks. So the amount of AP that you buy doesn't affect his Stardust Q damage, but what does is Magic Pen from Luden's. The other thing is that his E and Q are both multi-hitting spells, as is his empowered ultimate that hits twice. And Luden's lowers the cooldown of the item every time you hit with a spell up to 3 seconds per ability cast. His Q also has no cooldown, you can toggle it on and off. So what this allows you to do is breathe until you get 3 seconds of refresh from your Q, and then just temporarily cancel it and start again. And this will keep allowing you to refresh your Ludens, and you kind of want to play in this play pattern anyway because you're resetting and flying around with your W. Your E will also give you 3-second reset. Your empowered ult will give you multiple resets as the wave flies out and hits multiple different people. So what I'm going to do is I'll have had clips running in the background during this, and you can just look and watch the cooldown of my little Luden's icon in my inventory, and you'll see how many times it's proccing in the 2 clips that I'm going to play. The first one's a big team fight where I proc it 10 times, and you can see at the end of that one there's a double zap on Cogmore that just removes him from the game. And in the other one it's a little skirmish in mid lane where I get some nice resets, and I get 6 procs in such a short fight, and it was just about to come back up for the 7th proc, but the fight was already over. So you can see just how much damage this item can put out. The other thing is that the magic penetration, as I've said, it gives you a huge invisible damage boost compared to Liandry's, which is what most people build. So that's my mythic. As for my build order, I'm always going to start out with Lost Chapter. Well, I suppose I can talk about starting items. 9 times out of 10 I'll go Doran's Ring with double potion. Then I'm rushing into Lost Chapter. Lost Chapter is insanely good. It solves any possible mana issues you could have in lane. It gives you haste, it gives you AP, it just makes it so you can keep clearing waves with his Q and his E. It's probably the best component item in the game. Yeah, it's incredible. If mages could build multiple of these, they would. It's crazy. But my first completed item, 9 times out of 10, unless I'm really snowballing, at which point I will go Luden's first. My first completed item is going to be Rylai's Crystal Scepter. The slow on Azol, I'm sure everyone knows how well it synergizes with his E and his Q. So we're going to get Rylai's after Lost Chapter. This is going to give us our slow and our ability to bring out huge utility in skirmishes and team fights at just 1.5 items. Not even 1.5, it's only 3.7k gold, which is like the price of a death cap. So we get Lost Chapter and Rylai's for that. It also gives great stats for Azol. Then we're going to get our Mythic. So, as I said, 9 times out of 10, not even 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, I'm going to build Luden's here. After Luden's, although sometimes before it, if the gold thresholds that I base on are a bit funky, I'll get Sorcerer's Shoes, as I've talked about. Magic Pen is really, really good on Azol because it bumps up that base damage on your Q from your Stardust stacks. Then we get into third item. This is where it starts to get interesting. In the third item slot, there's 2 items that I regularly build. One of them is Horizon Focus. Now this item functions in a similar way to the Magic Pen that we've been getting from other items. It gives a flat 10% damage increase whenever you immobilize a champion or hit them from over 700 units away. Azol's Q, I think it starts at 750 and ends above 900. It scales by 10 per level. So his Q's way longer range than that, his E is way longer range than that, and his ult is way longer range than that, but also immobilizes them. So he's always proccing this, and the Horizon Focus 10% damage also increases the base damage on your Q from Stardust. So this item's really good as well. It also gives haste, health, and a ton of AP, which the AP, like I've said, it's not the best stat for Azol, but he does scale with it. He is an AP champion, so it doesn't go to waste. It's still nice. But yeah, the stats on the item are nice too. The other consideration for third slot, and by the way, whichever of these I don't buy third, I tend to buy fourth, is Void Staff. Void Staff gives you a huge amount of magic pen. You get the flat 40% magic penetration. And I've found that the threshold for where Void does more damage is about 60 MR. But the threshold for where I'll actually buy it third is if more people have 70 to 80 MR than don't on the enemy team. Because not only is the damage higher, but then it helps to mitigate the loss of AP, because Horizon Focus gives 35 more AP. You also don't get the 150 health from Horizon Focus if you go Void, and you're missing 15 haste. So I feel like it needs to be a bit higher than the break-even point for damage just to compensate for the loss of those stats. So about 70 to 80 MR, if that's the average MR for the team. Or if there's one person that I particularly need to kill that's building some MR, then I'll grab a Void Staff third and I'll push Horizon back to fourth. And then for last item, it can vary. A lot of the time I'll end up going Death Cap, but this is often just filled in by an Oblivion Orb that I'll later fill into a Morellonomicon if I need the anti-heal that game. Games don't often get this long, but if they do, I think Death Cap with Aurelion Sol that late in the game, you're just going to be the best champ in the game. So Death Cap's never bad. You can also just go Zhonya's or Banshees to mitigate some key abilities if you want to do that. There's plenty of options here, and I don't think it particularly matters. Now, you might remember I said that 99 times out of 100 I go for this Ludens build. The reason I say that is because the other 1% are times when the game is so hard to play ASOL, and honestly I should probably dodge these games. But if you imagine like Assassin jungle, Assassin mid, Engage support, Engage top laner. So if we're playing like Ornn, Evelynn, Zed, Nautilus, if that's like the enemy team, I'm going to get blown up. There's nothing I can do about it. And in these very specific circumstances where the entire enemy team is devoted to blowing me up, I will swap my Ludens for a crown. And this is like the only adaptation I ever make in Mythic. I don't think it's ever correct to go Rod of Ages. I don't think it's ever correct to go Liandry's. I've had someone ask me, what if the enemy team is really tanky? Do you then go Liandry's? And the answer is no, because even if they have like 3 tanks, what determines whether you win the fight or not is not whether you kill the tanks, it's whether you kill the backline. If you kill the backline in a 3-tank comp, if you kill the threats, the tanks will just die as an afterthought. You have so much percentage damage as Aurelion Sol, you have a huge percentage damage execute as well. You will just kill the tanks if the carries are dead. So yeah, I never go Liandry's, but there are these odd crown games, and that's going to lead me into talking about runes, because my runes are very much based on my items. So my standard page, I'll put on screen now. You can see I'm taking Comet. This has perfect synergy with ASOL. It's very similar to Ludens, as it sort of resets as you hit them with spells. So you'll be firing off multiple Comets in quick succession in fights. They'll also hit pretty often because you're building Rylai's first item. Gives you a nice little extra bit of poke in lane as well that the enemy has to try and dodge. Then we're going Mana Flow. This is going to keep our mana up. This rune is actually really, really powerful. Transcendence gives us some nice extra haste. I've seen some people take Absolute Focus. I think both are fine, but like I've said, I don't think ASOL scales too well with AP when compared to other mages, but haste is just really nice to have. So is the resetting of spells on champion takedown. You can E them and then, you know, finish some people off that are low, and then you might get another E because of the Transcendence cooldown reset. Then I take Scorch a lot of the time, and I'll refer you to my first ASOL video where I talk about Scorch. And then in the off tree, the reason I'm in Domination is to pick up Ingenious Hunter. The reason for this is that it takes Luden's cooldown from 10 seconds to, it seems to be about 6.5 seconds, I think, is the cooldown of Luden's once you have Ingenious stacked. So yeah, with 3 seconds reset per spell, it's only 2 spells to reset your Ludens, and that's why in those clips you can see me firing it off constantly. It does so much damage. It will regularly do over 5k damage in a reasonably like decent length game, up to 10k damage in long games. It's crazy how much damage I do with this item. As for the other Domination rune, I've found Taste of Blood to be the best. I've experimented with Ghost Poro. It's nice for the extra vision, the extra AP is okay, but Taste of Blood just makes you so much safer in lane. It actually heals quite a lot throughout the lane phase, and yeah, it lets you be a lot stronger in lane than you ordinarily would, which is the weakness of this champion. You might see for the stat shards that I do take the adaptive rune. I don't think attack speed's too necessary on Sol. You don't do a great deal of auto attacking, especially when compared to other mages that do take this attack speed shard. And he seems like he feels to me, his auto attacks feel really good. I don't know whether he has high base attack speed or what, but compared to other mages, his autos just feel good naturally. But as I've said 1,000 times, I don't think he scales too well with AP. So I only take one adaptive rune and I use the other 2 stat shards to do double resist, and this makes me really tanky in lane. It gives you like above, I think it's above 40 MR, above 40 armor in lane, which is just crazy compared to like your base resists. It makes you a lot harder to move in lane. There is one modification that I make, and that's if it's one of the Crown games, because then obviously since I'm playing Crown, I could take Ingenious Hunter for Crown cooldown, and it would still be okay, but it's not the same as when you're playing the Ingenious Hunter Luden's tech, so there's not really any real reason for me to go Ingenious. So in that case, I'll swap over to Resolve instead, and I'll play Bone Plating if I need it, Second Wind if I need it, otherwise Conditioning, and then I'll always play Overgrowth. And as you scale into the game, especially if you can get away with Conditioning, you will become so tanky with a Crown build. Your health is just going up and up and up. Conditioning as well. You could maybe greed a Seraphs in these games as well, maybe replace the Horizon focus, you'll do slightly less damage, but I think it's okay. It also delays your power spike by getting the tier early, but I don't think it's terrible. I think tier is bad in the Luden's build, but in the Crown build, I don't think it's too bad. So yeah, you can opt for this. And I think that's about it. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you learned something, and I wish you good luck in your solo queue games if you do experiment with this. Yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next episode. See ya.